I want to go over my settings that I use on my XT5 when I'm shooting portraits. Hopefully you can take this and apply it to your own style. I'm quite simple when I shoot. I try not to go into the menu during the shoot. So for me, it's best that we have everything set up beforehand. I'm all about efficiency. I value and respect people's time. So it's best that you know your camera inside and out, or set it up beforehand to make sure that you're ready to go so we don't have to worry about it once we get onto the shoot. I got my Fujifilm XT5 and the Atomos right here. We're going to be doing some screen recording. C1 to C6 settings for my Fujifilm XT5 are just different recipes. This is tailored to me because I only shoot portraits and document my travels, so having different recipes, Program N gives me like varieties that I can use for different situations, and different recipes could inspire me creatively. And again, this is how I shoot. I know some landscape photographers will have like a long exposure setting, astrophotography settings, so they can just go in and switch in and out right away without having to like use the shutter or the aperture to get everything dialed in. So let's go and input a film recipe into my XT5, and I'll share with you guys my thoughts on that stuff. For image size, we're gonna shoot RAW. We're gonna shoot the full 40 megapixels sensor, and then it's telling me if it's fine or plus RAW. If you're a JPEG shooter, just stick to fine and normal. That will save you some space because 40 megapixels RAWs are really, it takes up a lot of storage. But we're gonna do fine and RAW. That's what I like to shoot on. Lossless compressed to me seems like a sweet deal. Like it's only 40 to 47 megabytes. Uncompressed is around 80. So I'm always gonna use lossless compressed. Select JPEG or HIF. I shoot JPEG. That's what I've been known for. I know HIF is more efficient, but I don't like change, so I've been shooting with JPEG since the XT2, so I'm just going to stick to that. And then right after, we're going to go on Fuji X Weekly and find a film recipe to put in just for fun. Fuji X Weekly. Let's do Cinestill 400D by Fuji X Weekly. I'm going to show you how it's done. So we're going to go in here and let's look at the recipe. So it's going to be an Astia. So we're going to change the film simulations to Astia. Astia, the grain effect is strong and it's small. And the color chrome is strong. And then the color chrome blue is strong as well. Skin smooth effect, I leave off on everything. And white balance, it's fluorescent. Fluorescent 1, minus 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then minus 3 blue, 1, 2, 3. And the dynamic range is 200. I see tone curves. The highlight is going to be plus 3, and then the shadow is going to be plus 1. Gotcha. And the color is plus 2. Sharpness is minus 2. So this is where I want to discuss this with you guys. If you guys are going to use sharpness or high ISO noise reduction, chances are it's going to be baked into your RAW, okay? So be mindful of that, because if you put minus 2 sharpness, and then you open up your RAW, you start to see that, your images aren't as sharp, and then you start wondering why, and then you start growing resentment towards Fujifilm because, everyone keeps talking about how sharp Fujifilm cameras are, and you wonder why your images are not as sharp as other people on the internet. Chances are it's these two reasons right here, the sharpness and the high ISO noise reduction. If you want detailed shots, and if you want sharp photos without it looking like smeared, these are the two things that I recommend that you should check out for yourself. For sharpness in this film recipe, it's asking for minus 2, so that's what we're gonna do. But if you want sharpness in your photos, just leave it at 0. And high ISO, so right now it's at 0. That means that there's still some noise reduction going on. So for this one, if you don't want any noise in your shot, the lowest is minus 4. And why this is good is because, again, this setting is baked into your RAW. And I have a video on that showing you proof that there is some sort of like voodoo thing going on with the RAWs. Like the processor is baking that into the RAW, and it's making your photo have this painterly look if you were to, put it on a +4 or even at 0, okay? So play around with the settings and play around with what makes you feel comfortable, what makes your image look good without having to have that sort of like painterly noise reduction that Fujifilm's processor heavily processed. I'm gonna go go -4, which is fine. And for clarity, it's going to be -4. The reason why my clarity is grayed out is because I'm on freaking continuous high. So I gotta change it to single shot, and then you'll see it pop up. Okay, so if you ever find your clarity to be grayed out, it's because you're on burst. So change it back to single point autofocusing. We're gonna go to -4 as the film recipe suggests. For long exposure noise reduction, I turned this off. Okay, this is something that I don't need because I don't shoot long exposure. I remember having this on when I was, practicing with long exposure shots, like doing light trails and stuff. And the amount of time it needs to process an image because of long exposure noise reduction on is insane. So turn this off if you're doing like astrophotography, doing light trails or anything like that, because it's going to take up a lot of time when you're out shooting. So I just leave that completely off and turn off no matter what, because I don't want the camera to be doing the processing. I'll just do it on my own in post. Lens modulation optimizer, I just leave it on. Let's see, select C6. Okay, custom settings, I'll save that later. Let's see, focus area. Since I'm shooting portraits, I leave it at all because there are times where I want single point autofocus and there are times where I do want the tracking if I want to track the model. So having this right here where I can just adjust the size of the AF points is beneficial for me because I just move in and out right away. So this is on tracking now, and this is zone, this is single point. So I have different varieties at my disposal. If I didn't check all, you're only limited to that one autofocusing. That's why I have this, and I leave it at single points, like right here. I leave it as that. AF custom settings, I usually leave it on multi-purpose because I find that it works for what I needed to do. I'm not shooting anything ridiculous like, tracking cheetahs or like doing like go-karting or like photographing people jumping off hills in a slalom ski or anything, or playing tennis. So multi-purpose for me is fine for portraits. Wrap enable. So this is just to like when you get to the end of your point, and if you click right again, it will move back to the other side. So this is what it means. Like if I go right here, if I'm in the center and I move all the way to the right and I get all the way to the end right here, if I press right again, I'm going to move over to the other side, which happens. But if I disable that, I won't be allowed to do that. I don't even know why that's even an option in the first place, because that just seems so freaking dumb. Let's disable it and like go in here. If I do that again, get to the end, make a right, it's not going. It's not going. You see, I'm clicking right, but it's not moving. So I just think it's really dumb. I don't even know why we need to have that in there. Just turn that on. Pre-AF, I leave off. AF illuminator, I leave off. Face setting, face detection, I leave on. It's eye auto. Subject detection, I don't need because I'm shooting humans. Autofocusing assist, yeah, I guess if I want to. Manual focusing, so I do shoot a lot of third-party lenses and they're all manual focusing, right? And what I really like about Fujifilm cameras is their focus peaking. It's one of the best, and it gets like accurate results when I use manual focusing lens. My results have been really, really good, and I've been able to produce some good images because of the focus peaking. And for focus peaking, I like to choose the red color, and I like to put it on high. Focus check, I leave off. All these things are just like me. I don't really use. So release and focus priority right here. I just found out about this trick on how you can improve your hit rate. With release, the shutter response is to prioritize over focus. So pictures can be taken when the camera is not in focus. And that's when you have all those people shooting those high bursts, and some of them aren't in focus because they make it like that. But with focus, the focus is prioritized over shutter response. So pictures can only be taken when the camera is in focus. For AFS right here, I will have it on focus. And in AFC, you can either have it in focus or release, but I choose to have it in release. So what I've been told about the focus release priority is that the XT5 will only take shots if you're in focus. Now, I've tried using the AFC priority selection in focus, and even when the models moves around, it's not really 100% accurate. And you do get less frames because it prioritizes getting shots in focus. Whereas with release, you just let the shutter lie and you get the full burst rate because of it. The one thing about having AFC in the focus selection is you're not gonna get a fast shutter because again, it's taking that time to analyze your frame and only taking shots that are in focus. For me, if you change it to release, you'll be able to feel the speed of the camera, but chances of you getting a missed focus shots are much higher. But then if you change it to focus, you're not gonna feel the speed of that camera. And I'd rather have the speed. It feels more satisfying to me as shooting it this way. So for AFC priority selection, I would rather have it on release and take my chances. The AF for me has been good for portrait so far. It may be different for you guys, depending on what you shoot. Touchscreen mode. I like to turn this off because of habit. Since the XT2 and the XT3, and I put my eyes into the viewfinder, my nose will hit the LCD screen, and this will change the focus points to one of the corners. And it was so freaking annoying to do. So I would leave this turned off on every Fuji camera. It's just so dumb. It's like really, really so dumb. For drive in the shooting settings mode, I would leave everything alone. I don't touch any of this. Sports mode, self-timers, shutter type. I would put this on mechanical and electronic because again, when I'm shooting outside here, it's like really, really sunny. And if I'm shooting like with an f/0.95 lenses, the one feature that I like about Fujifilm XT5 is that it can go up to 128,000th of a second. You can freeze motion. You can actually use that shutter speed to actually shoot it wide open in the bright daylight. So I like to have it on for that reason. What else is there? Interval timer shooting. I don't touch any of this. I don't touch any of this for photos. IS mode. For the Ibis, I would just leave it on continuous. ISO auto setting, I don't touch that. I don't touch this. Multi-exposure, I'll leave off. Pixel shift, multi-shot, I'll leave off. Flash stuff, I just don't need this. And for movie settings, I just leave it as is because this is a photography setting for portraits, so I don't really need this. But if I use this, make sure this is on the red frame indicator so that it just makes it more easy for you to realize that it is recording. What I hate about my XH2S is they still haven't updated that yet. They still don't have a red frame recording indicator on this, so it's freaking annoying. And let's go to user settings. Sounds, I don't need to do any of this stuff. I just leave it as is. However, I do turn off my autofocusing beep sound because I don't like to hear that, and I find it's really loud and distracting, so I leave that off. I turn off operational volume, record volume, like all this I turn off because I don't like noise. Screen setup, viewing mode. So for EVF brightness, since it's really bright in Portugal, like in the Algarve, my EVF is at +4, but again, this is just me. You just play around with the settings to get it right. A preview exposure and white balance in manual mode, yes, turn that on for both. This is how you're going to be able to see if your exposure is correct in your EVF. If you turn that off, then it's going to be like a DSLR all over again. You're going to have to chimp. You're going to have to measure the light and then just play around with the exposure triangle and dial in your settings and then just keep chimping until you get the right exposure. This is a mirrorless camera. Just turn it on. And just use mirrorless cameras to your advantage. This is what it's there for. So natural live view, I leave off. I only turn it on if I'm using like a flash and a strobe, but I'm not going to go into reasons why because that's just like another video on its own. So F-Log View Assist, I turn on. And the next one is really important, which is the electronic level settings. I like to have this on so that my horizon lines are straight. This is very important, so turn this on because friends don't let friends shoot without your levels and your grid lines. My grid is a grid 9. Okay, and the rest I just leave as is. So you know how I just programmed the XT5 to show that? As you can see right now, you can't see the grid. There's no grid. There's only the leveler right here. That's the leveler, right? It's straight right now when the screen is straight. This is where display custom settings comes in. You have to go in here, check the framing guideline to on. Once you turn that on, then you're gonna see the grid. So that's just something that's a little bit quirky on Fujifilm's part because if I already checked out my grid in this section, why do I need this on here, right? It's just backwards thinking. I don't understand. If I chose my grid already, I expect it to be turned on. That's why I chose it in the first place. But then you have to go into the display custom settings again and actually turn it on again. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you ever come across this and you realize like, hey, where's my guidelines? Where's my rule of third line? Chances are it's in display custom settings and you just need to check framing guideline and then check to see if it's on the back of your LCD screen. And just be mindful of that because people are DMing me like I'm some sort of Fuji X tech support saying that there are things that don't show up on the screen. So if you can't find what you're looking for on the screen, chances are it's in display custom settings and it's your job to go through them and check them on or off. And I put emphasis on having your leveler on and your grid lines on because of framing and composition. I like using the rule of thirds as a compositional technique. The grid helps me line everything up. And your leveler, you don't want a crooked photo, you don't want a crooked horizon, and you don't want your images to have like slanted buildings. So make sure it's on. Like I said earlier, friends don't let friends shoot without your grid lines and your levelers turn on. So turn them on. Me being your friend, turn them on. And after all that, you're going to want to save this setting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back up here. What you want to do is go into the custom 6, press OK, and then save the changes so that the Fujifilm knows that you saved it. Just in case you switch in and out of different recipes, you have this one saved. So the film recipe is Cinestill 400D. This is the fee one if I just want to be, yep. And then, save the changes, edit custom nave, we should be good. And that is it. I am done. So just remember, if you make any changes to any of your custom modes, to save it right away, because otherwise, what Fujifilm does is if you switch in and out or turn off your camera, it will revert back to its original saving point, and then you're going to have to do it all over again, and it just gets really, really annoying. All right, there you have it, folks. I can't believe I just did that. I hope you guys learned something and take something away from this video. These are honestly the settings that I programmed into my Fujifilm XT5 for someone that shoots portraits. I don't think it's demanding like sports, action, and wildlife, so my settings are quite simple for me. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, as this is a Fujifilm and photography related channel. And if you're interested in the XT5 or the Atomos, links to it down in the description below. As always, my name is Tongue, and I'll see you in the next video. I love you.